Hi sweeties, how are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim. If this is your first time of coming across this channel, sweetheart, kindly smash that subscribe button, turn on your notification so you are notified each time I upload, and please give this video a thumb up. I appreciate you all so much, and I am saying massive shout out to every one of you for all the love and support you all give me here. I am truly grateful. Thank you all so much. So today we'll be talking something very important. I love to see things like this. You know, when people think they are going to hurt black people over some certain things, not knowing that they are doomed, they are going to harm themselves first. Yeah, this is what Asian Americans are being used as pawns and will be treated as scapegoats under the first assumption they will benefit. Because right now, to them, they think they are going to benefit from this affirmative action. That was why they sued, right? Because they feel that black people are taking their spaces. Black people are preventing them from getting admissions. Black people are preventing them from progressing. I mean, it's all been black people. And they decided to sue. So to them, they think they are going to get, they are going to benefit from this, not knowing that they are going down. And black people are going to watch them go down. What do you want them to do? Absolutely nothing. You know, you see all of the, actually when this affirmative action was, when the Supreme Court struck, they thought it's going to be in their own favor because that was what they wanted. I mean, to them, it's going to be in their favor. Like, you know, man, black people can't got nothing on us anymore. We're going to do our things, run our things. But right now, as it stands, they are going to see. It's, you know, when they say F around and find out, they are going to F around and find out. And it's good for them. What do you want us to see? Black people are actually going to benefit. Now, let me tell you all something. They totally forgot that black people actually get them human rights. Black people allow them to do businesses in their own community. You all know all that. I don't need to like go further to explain. And still, they are looking for a way. I mean, they are pushing them. The white people are pushing them so much against black people. Whoo, you definitely will love this video. Stay glued to the screen. I'm going to just roll this clip. We'll come back to talk about it. And I absolutely want to read all your comments. Let me know what you all think in the comment section. And straight up, I am rolling the clip.
So Grace says that Asian Americans are being used as pawns and will be treated as scapegoats under the false assumption we will benefit. Asians are being used by the same people who purport to care about them getting into universities but are passing alien land laws preventing them from buying homes. Side note, that's actually happening here in Texas, where Asian communities are being targeted and not being allowed to purchase certain homes in certain areas. Newsflash, black people are not doing that to you. However, Yayatin Chu decides to say, Asians have been discriminated against in college admissions. We sued because it harms Asians. Ending affirmative action benefits Asians. Telling us we are pawns is demeaning and belittles our fight for our civil rights in America. I just want to know how you showed up to a fight and swung on the wrong people. You literally claim like you're fighting for civil rights for Asians in this country. Just so you know, the reason why you have civil rights to begin with is because of black people in this country. Because black Americans fought for their rights during the civil rights era. That allowed you to have rights. That built the foundation for you to have civil rights in this country. Yet you feel like you have to strip ours away in order for you to have yours, and that's not true. But we know how anti-blackness works in this country as well as the rest of this world. As long as you're not black, you feel that you are more accepted. Meanwhile, the very people who are actually blocking your acceptance into these universities are also blocking you from buying houses. That's not black people. We could also talk about how many communities have entered into our communities due to redlining and racism in this country, where you are not allowed to be a part of these groups that are blocking you from getting into colleges in their neighborhoods. You were not allowed to share their spaces, so they forced you into ours, where even we were not allowed to establish businesses, but you were. And you were able to profit off of our communities while not feeding into our communities. Yet we were the problem. This is going to backfire so tremendously. And then once again, you will try to blame us instead of who was doing the most damage to your community to begin with. You're fighting the wrong people. And just like white women with Roe v. Wade, you're going to end up regretting your decision. So Grace says that Asian Americans are being used as pawns and will be treated as...
I want to add one thing that I think a lot of people are forgetting here. If you go back to Nazi Germany, you want to know who the model minority was? Jewish people. And I don't need to tell you what happened to them. Just because you align yourself with whiteness does not protect you. As we can see, they're just coming up with laws to discriminate against everybody. Everybody's getting it. And white supremacy knows that if they throw this one group a bone, then that group will fight on their behalf. And that's what we're seeing. And then at the same time, they know they can convince these people, let's say Asians in general, to fight on the behalf of whiteness, while at the same time, they'll be slowly taking away your right. And you won't even see it coming. You won't even see it coming. Because wait until they blame you. Wait until they're like, it's the Asians' fault. Just wait. What are you going to do then? Because at this point in time, I'm kind of like, as a black person, I'm kind of like, fuck y'all. Y'all on your fucking own. Because why do we have to do all the work? We bring you this far. We bring everybody this far. Yet you still hold on to your anti-blackness? You don't take into consideration the things that black people have done to move this country forward. The ways in which our suffering has benefited different groups in this country. And yet there's still anti-blackness. And yet when shit pops off, they look to us. Why aren't you helping us? We already helped. We already helped. We've been helping. We've been doing this for centuries. Y'all now just realizing, oh, now that you're really truly the other and whiteness doesn't want to include you, they want to actively exclude you, now you want to come and you want our help? No. At this point in time in my life, I'm like, I'm over it.
So first of all, it is some Asian Americans. It is a minority. So please do not fall for this divide and conquer tactic, because that is exactly what Edward Bloom and the Supreme Court want you to do. Edward Bloom wanted Asian Americans to blame black people for their not getting into college, and Edward Bloom and the Supreme Court want black people to blame Asian Americans for affirmative action being banned. But 70% of Asian Americans support affirmative action. And if you break it down by ethnicity, among Japanese Americans, I think that the approval is as high as 86%. I think that Chinese Americans have the lowest approval rating, and even then it is 56%. There is no Asian ethnicity where a majority disapprove of affirmative action. And in the most recent case, there were more Asian Americans involved in the lawsuit in supporting Harvard and in filing amicus briefs in support of affirmative action than there were Asian American plaintiffs who sued Harvard. Now, to answer your question, the reason why some Asian Americans think that this decision is a win for them is because they fell for divide and conquer tactics and they aligned with whiteness and they blamed black people for their not getting into college. Something I'll touch upon, as long as we do understand that a lot of Asian Americans like myself are aware of this and it doesn't change our support of affirmative action. Research has indicated that if college admissions was based purely on GPA and standardized test score, then enrollment among Asian Americans would increase slightly, but we're talking about tenths of a percent. And it's also indicated that the 12% or so of Asian Americans currently enrolled in college who did benefit from affirmative action under such a system would likely lose their seats, and they tend to be Asian Americans who come from lower income families. On a purely personal note, when I was applying to the University of Michigan in the 1990s, it was generally thought that being Asian American is a disadvantage in college admissions. And what my dad told me is that since I am a first generation born Asian American, I have a lot of privilege. I was born and raised in a country that was stolen from Native Americans, that was built off the free labor of enslaved Black people. Furthermore, I'm not the descendant of a railroad Chinese. I am not the descendant of a Japanese American who was interned during World War II. And at that time, we thought that I was not the descendant of anybody who was negatively impacted by the Chinese Exclusion Act. It turns out that wasn't true. But what my dad said was, if the University of Michigan is going to remove a quarter point from your application because you're Asian American, and that is necessary in order to redress historical harm done to Black people and Native Americans, then so be it. And what the stereotypical Asian hard work ethic meant in my household is you just need to work that much harder to make up for that quarter point. And what you don't do is you do not blame the people who have historically been harmed. What you do is you work hard to change the system. So I am disappointed in my fellow Asian Americans who don't seem to understand that.
So this ban on affirmative action earlier today is being marketed in the news as a win for the Asian American community. And I'm not quite sure about that. I'm just thinking in my situation, I really don't think this is a win for me. I have to remember that with a college like Harvard, the acceptance rate is around 5%, which means that most Asian Americans who apply don't get into Harvard. No matter how you slice and dice the admissions process, most Asian Americans who apply will never get into Harvard. Even if Harvard decided to reserve every single one of their spots to an Asian American person, even then, an Asian American who applies will most likely not get in. But up until now, if you didn't get into one of these Ivy League schools, you could have at least blamed it on affirmative action. You could be like, Mom, it wasn't my fault. It was affirmative action. My race held me back. But now, what are you going to do? What are you going to tell your mom? Worse yet, what is she going to tell all her friends? You can't use affirmative action as a scapegoat anymore. She's going to have to admit to everyone around you that you really weren't good enough to get in.
Sure, let's talk about it. So the person asking this question is Asian, and so I know what you're trying to get at. A lot of Asian Americans have been led to believe that because we're overrepresented at a lot of selective universities, that we've become undesirable and that we need to have higher test scores than everyone else just to have a chance to get in. There's this misconception that Latino students and Black students have it easier than Asian students getting to these universities because they're underrepresented. But the thing is, it's statistically impossible for underrepresented students to take seats from Asian American students. Harvard has 14% Black students and 12% Latino students, which is more or less their representation in the actual US population. In contrast, despite being 5% of the US population, Asians make up 25% of Harvard. A 2016 study by Sage Journals found that even if you remove all Black and Latino applicants, white and Asian applicants only get a 1% higher chance of getting into Harvard. Affirmative action is just a small part of what's called holistic review, and even though it's not a perfect system, we should stop accusing Black and Latino students of taking our spots. Frankly, it's racist.
In response to the fact that Black and brown people are paid less than white people for the exact same work, this guy claims affirmative action and thousands of Asians who got shut out of colleges for underqualified Blacks say differently. As an Asian American, I can tell you this is a lie, and here are 3 very good reasons. Asian Americans are 6% of America's population, but 26% of those who got admitted to Harvard. Doesn't sound like they're too oppressed here. Point 2, 43% of white students at Harvard are legacies. That's more than Asian, Hispanic, and Black students combined. But speaking of unqualified students, 75% of these legacy students would not have gotten admission if they weren't legacy students. They're the ones taking seats for more qualified Black, Asian, and more qualified white students. Point 3 is the icing on the cake. The demographic that benefits most from affirmative action are white women. More than Black, Asian, and Hispanic people combined. Racists know they don't have a leg to stand on, so they want Black and brown people to fight against one another. Don't let them do that. Class dismissed.
As an Asian who went to Harvard College then law school, I'm going to tell you exactly what the Supreme Court ending affirmative action today really means, and specifically what you should be doing if you're applying to college as a minority. First, the breaking news is that affirmative action, even if meant to promote racial diversity, now officially, legally equals racial discrimination. How? Because the court says college admissions is a zero-sum game. There are only so many spots, so if you give extra points to one minority, then another minority group loses, which is argued happened to Asians at Harvard. If there's one quote you remember, it should be this: students must be treated based on his or her experiences as an individual, not on the basis of race. But look, if you're applying to college, you should not abandon talking about your race. If it's important to your story, you should be writing about it, talking about it in your interview. The same colleges will still value diversity, but the burden has now shifted from the admissions officers being able to ask you about it to you, the applicant, writing about it. UNC was giving extra points to certain minorities, and Harvard said race could tip you into the acceptance pool. The court says those formal policies are not okay, but race could still be considered. It's just up to you now to talk about it.
I completely disagree with the decision to get rid of affirmative action as a software engineer, college grad, and as an Asian. And here's why. I want to first discuss that I think there's a big misconception on how affirmative action works. I think people have this misunderstanding that there's a race quota that colleges use to have like a certain amount of black people, have a certain amount of Asian people, have a certain amount of white people, etc. That does not exist. There's no race quota in colleges in the United States. The whole point of affirmative action was to promote equal opportunity and address the historical disadvantages certain groups faced. And that could be based on race, ethnicity, or gender. I think gender is also another one that's overlooked. So how does affirmative action work when you're applying to colleges? The way it works is you can now talk about your race, your gender, your ethnicity in your essay or when in your interviews when you're applying to colleges, and they'll just take that into consideration. That's all there is to it. There's no quota. For Ivy League schools, Asian people still fill in more spots available than Black people and Hispanic people combined. So take that into consideration. I Googled that fact, I may be wrong, but it's on Google. Now I want to talk about why I think Asians who are mad about affirmative action are barking up the wrong tree. So of the students that get into Ivy League schools, 25 to 30% get in via legacy. That's a significant amount. And also, that's not also including people who get in via sports scholarships. Black and Hispanic communities exhibit the highest poverty rates in America. And I believe that affirmative action is a step forward to breaking those cycles. So what if you're Asian and you're poor? Well, let me tell you something. Colleges don't care if you're poor at all. Colleges are business. They're trying to make money, and they can't make money off poor people. Of course, they'll make a few exceptional cases and give out scholarships to some poor people to make an example, but that's it. That's it. Now, to wrap things up, this might be a hot take, but for the individuals who are still mad at Black and Hispanic individuals filling in spots in colleges because of their race and ethnicity, I think are borderline racist, are just racist. Because now you're saying they got in because of their race and ethnicity, not because of their intellect, their potential, and their talent. Okay, that's all I have to say. I hope that this action does not further negatively impact minority groups. And from my personal experience, my computer science program was predominantly Asian. So is it even an issue to be mad about? You know, I don't think so.
So powerful together, they created a myth to keep us apart. The gutting of affirmative action is another devastating example of how white dominance weaponizes the model minority myth. Within our Asian community, there are those who fall into the trap of aligning with whiteness. White extremists have leveraged this for decades because that's how white dominance works. Affirmative action got to as far as it did today because of movement work by Black civil rights organizers. And very intentionally at this exact time in the 60s, the model minority myth was branded and propagated specifically to divide away Asians from building and organizing with the Black community. This happened before, it's happening again. It never stopped. Asians aligning with whiteness is 100% always detrimental. There is no scenario where white adjacency is not racist. It is always anti-Black, anti-Indigenous, anti-people of the global majority. And that also means it's also anti-Asian. My fellow Asians particularly, white adjacency is always harmful to those who try to be adjacent. Don't ingest the poison, because in addition to poisoning yourself, you poison everything around you. Instead, what we can do is we can access that power that they have been trying to keep from us for so long.
Hey TikTok, Kai Von Schroff here. I'm an alumnus of Brown, Harvard, and Yale, and an Asian American. Let's talk about the disgraceful opinion out of the Supreme Court today. Make no mistake, the Supreme Court has just ripped away a tool that we had to address the systemic inequalities that this country has been built upon. Inequalities that undeniably persist today. The narrative around affirmative action admissions is completely false. One quick example. Just last year in May, I graduated from my joint degree program at Harvard Law School and the Kennedy School of Government. It's a 4-year program, 12 students in that program, not one black student. In the year 2022, if you look at the faculty level, this trend also persists. The Harvard Kennedy School has just two tenured faculty members that identify as African American. What kind of environment do you think that is for students of color? Meanwhile, a 2019 study of white admits at Harvard showed that 43% of those admits were either legacies, athletes, or related to donors or staff of Harvard. Yet somehow the Supreme Court doesn't seem to care about that being unfair. Maybe that's because despite lying about having no connections to Yale, Brett Kavanaugh got in because he was a legacy. Or maybe that's because Amy Coney Barrett, the least qualified justice on the court, doesn't want to answer questions about how she got there when Trump said he picked her because she's a woman. The irony is affirmative action is actually not about selecting unqualified applicants just because they are diverse. It's about selecting qualified applicants and giving priority to underrepresented groups. And let's be honest about the sick, twisted tactic that went into effect here, which was pitting Asian Americans against other minorities. It's a divide and conquer approach, and unfortunately, too many Asian Americans have fallen for this. So I want to call you out. We need to do better. But this is a wake-up call, not a death sentence. We must fight back and demand equal opportunity for all students. We deserve a system that sees us, hears us, and believes in us. Share this, make it viral. Let's send a message loud and clear that we won't stand for inequality. We won't go backwards, no matter what the Supreme Court.
Leave it up to Laura Ingraham to gaslight all the Asian Americans.
Edward Bloom told me my results, and so they said I had a 20% chance of gaining admission to Harvard as an Asian American, and then a 95% chance as an African American.
So the Klan's favorite mascot on Fox News did an expose on how all the Ivy League schools are using affirmative action to take away opportunities from Asian American students and giving them to black students.
Harassment is why individual students were not named in 2 Supreme Court cases, claiming the admissions policies of Harvard and the University of North Carolina are racist and unlawful. Instead, the plaintiff is an organization called Students for Fair Admissions.
So the conservatives figure out a way to get rid of affirmative action by using the Asian students as pawns to create this group called the Students for Fair Admissions Act. And basically what their complaint is that these kids that got perfect scores on their SATs should have been able to get into any school that they want to, but because of affirmative action, they gave their seat to a black kid that didn't score as well, which is fucking not true at all. So the poor misguided Asian brother of mine taking part in this lawsuit against Harvard, his name is John Wang. He scored a 1590 out of a 1600 on his SATs and got a 4.65 GPA. But these are the schools that he applied to.
So the top tier schools I applied to were MIT, Caltech, Princeton, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, and UC Berkeley.
My God, my Asian brother, you were complaining about not getting into a school with a 4% acceptance rate where your competition is every single valedictorian in the United States, of which you weren't one of them. Like, fuck, John, you scored a perfect on the math SATs. If I were you, I wouldn't be focused on the 5 or 6 black kids that you scored a couple points higher than, when half the white student body couldn't even break 1200. And like, fuck, I'm not even exaggerating. The study came from 2019 where they found out half the white kids that were attending Harvard only got there because mommy and daddy bought a fucking statue. And side note, no hate to the kid, and I don't know about the rest of you Asians, but I'm sick and tired of Republicans pretending like they give a shit about the Asian community when all they're ever doing is pitting each race against one another. Like, I'm done with that shit. And side note, John, you didn't get into Caltech because a third of the student body is already Asian. Like, what were they going to do? Like, knock off another white person to accept you? No, they're not doing that.
They really wanted this affirmation action to be taken, right? And to them, they thought it was gonna be for their own good against black people. I mean, what they wanted is that that black people get to suffer but not knowing that this is actually good for Black people. You know, they were doing it because they do not want, like, you know, they want Black people to not to be, like, you know, not to get the best, right? To them, they feel like they are giving their slots. So let me use it this way. They feel that they are giving their slots to Black people, and that Black people are also making them not gain admissions into school. Now, the Supreme Court has ruled this out, struck, right? And they thought it was going to be in their favor. But as it stands, everybody's going down. It's actually going to benefit Black people. And they are going down big time. And one of them actually said that Asians has been discriminated in college admission. We sued because it harms Asians. They sued because it harms Asians. Ending affirmation action benefits Asians. But trust me, they are on their way to. Because the reason why they sued is because they think Black people are taking away their slot and all that. And to think that Asians really wake up to sue so that, like, you know, it can benefit them against Black people is something that really got me. You heard what the other person said, divide and conquer. This is not like a death sentence. That is you people's cross, right, as it stands. It is your cross. I mean, you already want to be white so bad. Black people have always been there fighting, doing everything for you all. I mean, you all got human rights because Black people all stood up and fought tooth and nail. They really have been fighting for every other minority groups. And I am very sure that most of the rights other minority groups got was because of them, how they fought so hard. So now they've got their own rights, and all they want to do is look for a way to harm them. Because that was why they sued against the affirmative actions. You all heard what they all said, like all of them. They are using they are using them against Black people. And you know what happens when other minority groups are being used against each other. It shows how dumb they are, how unintelligent. They all want to get into Harvard University and get into, like, you know, the best colleges, but their brains aren't even working. I mean, they cease to understand that they are using them against each other. Black people don't even care. That is number one. That is something you all should understand. You know who they are. They have been through it all. And you all are the ones that will suffer this the most. Because you all think it's going to be Black people that will suffer it. But no. You all got nothing on them. Now let's talk about this. You know, some people seem to forget so easily how they were used. I mean, when you go to Black communities, you see all Asian stores. Why? Because they actually get them loan to go to Black communities to open stores. That's why there was a video I did sometime where they said Black dollar does not even stay in Black community. It goes to their own community. That is how bad they have been really using them. They have been using them for so long. It did not start today. And still, they have refused to wake up. And when you all refuse to wake up, Black people are going to, anyways, you all already know that they have, like, you know, they already withdrew a long time ago. And they are going to sit from the back. They will just be at the back and watch you all mess around. Because what I see is messing around. You all are going to mess around and find out. Till this very moment, you all don't know that. They know that if you all come together, you all are going to fight their asses. Block them all down. This is something you all should know already. Do you need Black people to tell you that when all the groups come together, they can fight against white supremacists? But you all think white people are doing them a favor. No, they are not doing you people a favor. When they are done with other people, they already started with you. You all can see. You all think Black people are taking away your blessings. No, You guys are the ones fighting yourselves now and at the same time fighting Black community. We're just gonna watch you all do your thing. What? We're gonna be laughing. Black Americans, African American, Black people will be laughing like real hard. This is where I'm gonna draw the curtain. Thank you all so much for all the support. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.